Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got another really interesting head-to-head to run. It's a shell and choke combo that one of you guys wanted to see us test out here recently, but I figured this is the perfect opportunity to run these shells through this choke, but in two different setups, and see how the two different guns actually compare to each other when you run the same choke and shell through them. So this was the perfect opportunity to do that, and we'll see how they perform side by side. But first, for the shells that we're running, I brought out some more of the Remington Nitro Turkey shells. These ones are the 12 gauge, 3 inch, 1 7/8 ounce payload of 6s at about 12-10 feet per second. We've tried our fair share of Nitro Turkey stuff on the channel. These are okay shells. They're perfectly adequate, but from my experience, they're definitely not the best thing on the shelf. You can find certain choke combos that do well with them, but even then, pretty much anything Winchester has on the same exact store shelf is going to beat them out. And that's not even me being sponsored or affiliated with Winchester in any way, shape, or form. They have no idea who I am. But as far as the Nitro Turkeys go, the 6s have shown promise so far. We've seen some okay results from them, but we still haven't yet found that combo that really dials them in that little bit more. Maybe these setups today might do that. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But as for the setups that we're running today, I've actually got two shotguns that we're going to be running head to head. First up being my Remington 870, and we're going to put it up against my Mossberg 500 here, if I can get both of them in frame. There you go. That's a little bit better. We've got an 870 Special Purpose. This has a 26-inch barrel on it, and we've got a Mossberg 500 that's got a 28-inch barrel on it. Ideally, I would be running the same barrel lengths for both, but I don't have identical barrels for both guns. But for the chokes, we're going to be running Carlson's Longbeard XR 660 constrictions in both guns. Both of these are the same choke, just Remington 870 versus Mossberg 500. Now, it's not lost on me the irony that we're putting a Remington Nitro Turkey through a Longbeard XR oriented choke. But for what it is, these chokes have done well, and this 660 might be the constriction that these Nitro 6s like. So putting a Mossberg 500 and a Remington 870 up against each other, two titans of the shotgun world, and we'll see how they do today, side by side. So as for our test today, we're running everything the same as we usually do. I've got two turkey targets set up side by side at 40 yards with the chrono to get our velocity as well. We may see a little different velocity since we have a little different barrel length on each gun, but it shouldn't be massive, especially for general field use purposes like we're looking at today. So we've got the same shells, the same chokes, but two different guns. The 870 and the 500 are about as good and reliable as it gets for a pump shotgun. So which one actually will perform a little better, at least with these Nitro Turkey 6s? I don't know. This is going to be pretty interesting to see if they're pretty well identical or if there is a noticeable difference or not. So let's get you guys a view of both of those targets. We'll start with our 870, then go to our 500, and we'll see how they both perform. Alright, so we'll quickly have a look at our velocities before we go check out our targets. First up was the Remington 870 with the 26-inch barrel. That shot gave us 1317. We have a 1210 claim on the box, although about 1300 or so is typically what we see out of these Nitro Turkey 3-inch shells. So we're right there at it out of the 870. And then our Mossberg 500, which is a 2-inch longer barrel at 28 inches, gave us a little more velocity at 1326. But still, very comparable. 9 feet per second is not going to make any kind of difference here. So we've got plenty of velocity, but do we have two almost identical patterns, or is there a big difference between them? Let's go check it out and see. All right, so now we're down here at both of our 40-yard targets. We got both of our combos side by side. And although there's not a massive difference between either one of these, I do think the Remington probably patterned a little bit better, at least with this combination. On the left is our Remington 870 pattern. On the right is our Mossberg 500 pattern. Remember, both of these are Remington Nitro Turkey 6s. Both of them have Carlson's Longbeard XR 660 constriction chokes. So identical otherwise than being an 870 and a 500, and there's a slight different barrel length between the two, but they're close enough to where it shouldn't really affect anything too drastically with this type of test today. Obviously, we're not getting super scientific here. This is one shot with one combination, so it is what it is as far as results go. Neither pattern is overly impressive, but both of them are pretty typical Remington Nitro Turkey territory for sure. So first, we're going to start over on the left. This is our Remington 870 pattern. This shot might have favored a little bit off to the right. That's not usually where this 870 hits, and that might be the first time we've ran that choke out of that particular 870, so that may be a factor here as well. But we still do absolutely have a dead bird. There are several through the brain, top of the neck, and down there towards the bottom of the spine as well. And if we had that centered up a little bit, there's obviously nowhere he can go to and get through that spread, but it's a much more open and broad spread as well. I think we have seen tighter and more condensed areas of shot out of these shells with other combos, but at least for the most part, what we see up here around the top right of that turkey target is a decently even spread. Might have a little bit of a thinner spot just off the top right corner up here, but it's not anything too detrimental to the pattern. And around the edges, I mean, we definitely throw our fair share of stuff down there at the bottom, a little bit here and there, and same thing continues up the left. But between these two patterns, I think this 870 is a little bit more brought in and condensed, so this may be the winner, but we'll see exactly what it looks like when we pull the targets down and count pellets here in a second. But now we have our Mossberg 500 pattern. Pretty much same story across the turkey target. There's one through the brain, several through the top of the head and neck area, and that continues down towards the bottom of the spine as well. Nowhere he can get through that pattern, but it is quite a bit more on the open side as well. Much more of a general field load use type of pattern we're seeing here. It would certainly work for turkeys, but you could run that for other applications as well. It's definitely not overly condensed down. We really don't have any kind of hotter core area to it, and it's just a more broad spread. We got a decent little void off the top right corner. Continuing on down, there's another void off the right edge and just on the right edge of the turkey target there above his back as well. I do think the core is a little thinner on here than what we saw with the 870, and we have a bunch of pellets along the bottom there as well, so it's just a little more broad looking than what the 870 gave us. But between these two, they're pretty interchangeable within 40 yards. Both of them would serve the same purpose. Neither of them is overly impressive necessarily. So again, backing up and comparing both of them side by side, they're pretty similar, but I think numbers wise, we may win it out with the 870 pattern over on the left. So let's pull both the targets down. We'll finish drawing circles and counting pellets, and we'll get the actual numbers wise difference between these two patterns. All right, so now we've got our targets out of our way and we can see the exact number difference and stuff between these two patterns. They are pretty similar. They're pretty interchangeable, but technically I do think the Remington over there on the left patterned a little bit better overall than what the 500 gave us. Obviously, does this mean the 870 is better than the 500 for a turkey gun? No, not necessarily. This is one shell, one choke, and one test. There's going to be plenty of stuff that performs better through either one of these, and hand me either one, and I'm going to take it happily. Even though I tend to shoot a little better on the Remington platform than I do the Mossberg stuff, both of these are perfectly adequate and great performing guns. Just these shells are a little bit limited for our turkey pattern's sake today. But again, we'll start over here on the left. This is our Remington 870 pattern. We have a 10 and 20 inch circle drawn there. Within our 10 inch core, we have 80 pellets. Might be a little hotter on the top half than what it is on the bottom half of that 10 inch circle. So still not completely an even spread necessarily, but it's not too bad. Outside of that, with our 20 inch leeway circle, we fill it up pretty nicely with an additional 130 pellets. Usually, numbers wise, I like to see 100 in the core and 150 in the 20 inch ring for a decent performing lead shell. So we're not far off, but it's just not quite there all the way either. Because of course, we still have a bunch of stuff scattered everywhere else on the target, all over the place from top to bottom. Not impressive. This is not the best pattern we've seen out of these shells, but it would certainly work if you're hunting at closer ranges or you prefer a little more broad of a spread that you could push to 40 in the event you needed it. It would certainly do the job. But now we have our Mossberg 500 pattern. We've got the same 10 and 20 inch circles drawn within our 10 inch core. Definitely a little bit thinner looking. We've got 63 pellets compared to 80 with the 870. So less pellets through the core area. And within our 20 inch leeway ring, we pick up an additional 142 pellets. But you can really start to see a couple of those voids coming into play as well. There's a thin spot at the bottom, another decent little thin spot on the right and on the top right corner of it there. So this may may not be as condensed or as even of a spread, but technically those 142 pellets is 12 more than the 130 that we got with the 870. So that just goes to show a little more broad spread. We took the pellets that were in the core and moved them outwards with the 500. But we've got pretty well the same exact story around the edges as well. A lot of stringy flyers and just stuff scattered all over the place. Not really a condensed area of shot. And technically, although both of these patterns would serve the exact same purpose within 40 yards or so, I think the Remington beat out this Mossberg 500 by just a little bit in looking at the pattern as a whole. We have a little more in the core, maybe a couple less in the 20-inch ring, but I think the pattern is a little better and a little more condensed on the 870. So very interesting to see these two side by side. Of course, that shell and choke combo is nothing to write home about. It would work, but that's about the extent of it. Not really something I'm going to go out and try and track down and run for my turkey gun, but maybe we should continue trying the 500 versus the 870 and seeing what we can get between the two. If this trend continues, that the 870 pattern's a little bit better, I don't know. I wouldn't hesitate to run either one of them. We've seen great results from both with other turkey loads and chokes, but it's always interesting to see these two side by side to see what the difference really is. And technically, I think the 870 squeezed it out by just that little bit today, at least with this combo. And here's your two wads out of those shells. You've got your 870 on the left, your 500 on the right. Both of them look pretty well identical. The 500 has a pedal smushed in a little farther, but that's probably where it hit the ground. But both of them are pretty well the exact same. Nothing out of the normal. Remington wads are very soft, so having them look a little bit torn up like this is no surprise. Very much the typical performance for both of them. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about these performances right here? As for a turkey pattern, neither one is impressive. They would both work. We've pretty well already covered it there. There are certainly better options out there, and we've definitely also seen better out of these shells. So nothing too special to write home about on that front. As far as the 870 versus the 500 goes, very similar patterns, but I think the 870 has a little bit better overall spread. Got a few more in the core, and I think it looks a little more brought in as well than what the 500 gave us. This is one test with one shell and one choke combo, and technically they're not exactly the same barrel length either, so not really a scientific test. And definitely between these results, I'm not at all saying the 870 is the better shotgun. I think we all know that both of these are great options for a pump shotgun, and they can both pattern lights out with the right shell and choke combos. But when I saw one of you guys request that we run the Nitro 6s through that Longbeard choke, I figured this will be the perfect opportunity. I've got an 870 and a 500 and the same choke for both of them. We'll see what they can do side by side, and I think it gave us some pretty interesting results one way or the other. Not a whole lot of difference, but it's going to come down to personal preference as to which one you want between these two anyway. So let me know all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of the Nitro Turkey 6s, and if so, what kind of results have you seen? Are either one of these a combo you would hunt with, and if so, which one are you taking? Just pattern wise, and between an 870 and a 500, which gun would you rather take? And do you want to see more tests like this between the 870 and 500? And if so, what kind of stuff do you want to see? Different turkey loads, different chokes, different types of shells in general, buckshot or anything like that? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.